to Womanity Africa with Osasu. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Osasu Eps. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of TOS TV Network, a Pan-African storytelling platform, and the co-founder of Natso Global Investment, a real estate and media investment firm. On Womanity Africa, we'll be amplifying the voices of women and girls across Africa, talking to some of them who have been in the spotlight, some of them who want to get in the spotlight, and making a difference in society. Without further delay, our first guest today is Funke Baruwa, who is the Programs Officer at Ford Foundation's West Africa office. She covers gender, racial, and ethnic justice. Funke, thank you so much for joining us in today's program.
Thank you for having me, Osasu. It's good to be back here.
Thank you for being my first guest. How does it feel?
I feel excited. Special.
I'm very excited to have you here and start this new journey with you. I noticed that a lot of people have conversation for conversation's sake rather than conversation for impact drive, impact that you can actually feel, impact that's tangible. So I felt like Womanity Africa would be a good platform to highlight what women are doing and also to inspire the younger generation as well to achieve and to sort of show them the ropes of how things are done. So I want you to talk to me today about how you started your career in gender equity and the fight for gender equality. And for the girls who are watching also, who want to emulate you, what are some of the key steps that they can take?
I think I've been asked this question a couple of times, and every time my response has always been almost the same. I start with saying that I never, ever thought I'd be doing this at all. And I sometimes call myself an accidental feminist because this work sort of found me. I didn't find it. For a young girl, my growing up years, I would say I never experienced many of the social justice or gender injustice issues that I currently fight for. And I grew up amongst boys as an only girl. But there wasn't really that much difference in my home. There wasn't any specific rules for the girl and then specific rules for the boys. So I would call my formative years as something that was balanced. And so you would not expect someone like me to be in this kind of career trying to fight some injustice maybe that happened in my childhood and to balance that out from some trauma. But no, I guess I stumbled into this work as soon as I started working, and of course I got into the private sector first. I'd always wanted to be in the corporate ladder, and then got into the public service, got to see my dad, who was like, oh, the public service is better for you as a woman. And somehow, accidentally, I started working then at the Petroleum Special Trust Fund, and our work was on poor projects, and I was responsible as a program officer on our roads work. And I could see how much injustice, happened to people on the fringes and margins of society who didn't have the opportunity to be maybe in the capital city, for instance, or the state capital for states. And the access was just poor and limited. And it was worse when you were female. If indigent men and boys and young men had certain limitations in their lives, it was double jeopardy for women and girls. It was even more. And so I felt, why should this be? Why does my gender have to determine the kind of opportunities or access that I get? And then as my career progressed, I really, really caught my teeth in my years when I then worked at the presidency at the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on MDGs. Those 10 years for me were very critical because I just got thrown into the deep to start working on gender. And I had to basically learn what it even meant. I thought gender used to just refer to men and women and the biological differences. So that meeting of my boss then, Amina Mohammed, who is the current Deputy SG at the UN, and she said, oh, you're female, so you should just come work you should be a gender advisor. I'm like, what what is this? She said, go read up about it. It's not rocket science. You can do it. So I started reading about it, and it was then I came to the realization that these were systemic issues, structural issues, societal issues, that basically limit the woman or the girl child. It was just obvious. I didn't see it before because, your background sometimes determine how you turn out, because I just felt I could be as good as the boys. There was no limitation in my home. So I'm the kind of person who should have that understanding. You can do it. Everybody should be given equal platforms, and then you can. But not everyone had that opportunity, and that I came to that realization in those 10 years. And I could see that even in education, even in career, even in opportunities that appeared in the public sector, the private sector, there were certain systemic barriers that hindered women and girls from getting to wherever they were. And I made up my mind to be that one voice amongst many who would work to, dismantle these stereotypes and dismantle the structural or systemic barriers that held women and girls back. And here we are over 20 years after, and I still feel we've made a lot of progress, but there's still a lot to be done. And one thing I always say is, you have to find a way to love what you do. If you don't, you're going to be stuck in a 9-to-5 that you're not happy about. So, as we were speaking earlier, I have my bad days, I have my good days, but I think the good days trump the bad days.
The bad days. Wow, that's amazing. That was a loaded response. I don't even know where to start tackling. But I want to start with the systemic barriers that hinder women, because I feel like this is a conversation that has been had for decades. Gender equality, gender equity. But it's sort of boring to a lot of people, because for the men that are watching or listening in, they're like, oh, you guys get over it. If you're good enough, if you're as good as your male counterpart, you will succeed. There's nothing holding you back apart from yourself. So they don't necessarily see the systemic barriers that hold women back. Then for the women who have been advocating, for women who have been talking about issues like this, sometimes it feels like, is the needle really being moved? Are changes really happening? Or are we just talking? Are we just gathering to talk? Are we just, repeating the same cycle over and over again? You mentioned something earlier when you were introducing yourself. You called yourself a feminist.
I purposely did.
I
went there.
You went there. I love it. What does feminism mean to you as an African woman? As an African woman, what does feminism mean to you?
So one of the things that really bother me about Western definitions of ideologies is the fact that once they put a label on it, it then becomes the ideology, the idea they originated it. There was a Queen Amina before we started hearing about feminism. There was I'm trying to remember the one
Queen Idia, Edo State, Benin.
Yes,
hello.
In Benin. There was the one in Oyo Kingdom. There was another woman, Moremi. There was a Moremi. There were no labels then, but these were women who defied status quo.
Yeah.
I call myself a feminist because feminism is the radical notion that women too are people and women's rights are human rights. And everyone, regardless of their biological construct, should have access and opportunities to everything that the world wants to offer to live their best lives. And I have no apologies, no ifs, no buts about that. I've had to grapple with some of these name calling because on social media, everything that has an original has a counterfeit. So of course, even democracy is abused. Even faith, Christianity, Islam is abused. So the abuse by some Christians or Muslims does not totally blacklist their faith, So the same thing with feminism. So I believe that we ride and soar on the wings of all the women who have paid the price for us all to be able to assert ourselves and to be who we are today. And that, for me, is just a radical notion, just to stand tall and say, I'm human too. You know, I have the same red, blue, whatever color of blood you ascribe to yourself running in my veins. And my biological construct, the way I look, what I'm born as, should not limit the opportunities that come to me, or the places or the doors I should get to. And one of the radical feminists that I love to quote, for instance, is Shirley Chisholm, who says, Shirley Chisholm, she says, if they don't have a seat at the table, bring your own folding seats, right? And I even say that if there is no table, make your own table, just like you did. TOS, I'm sure, for TOS, I'm sure if you had gone to some of these existing news houses or something to say you want to have a show, they'll bill you an arm and a leg. You probably would have to run around, but you built your own show, you know, the sheer audacity and the tenacity of that. So it's the same thing, you know. In the past, doing that, your parents will probably ask you, why is this what you want to achieve first? Why not go start a family or something like that? So yes, I don't think that the West gave us feminism. I think we've always had it as African women. You know, I watched The Woman King. It's one of the greatest movies I love, the Algoje tribe. We didn't even know that there were female warriors like that. The same thing we've heard about, you know, in other parts of the world. And that Africa, even we heard about the Amazons, and that we even had the Algoje tribe of women who were warriors just a few hours from us in Lagos, you know. So those stories need to be told to show that we're not just imbibing a Western concept. You might have named it, and of course, like they say, the story of the hunt is always in favor of the hunter. Exactly. Because the lion or whatever animal it was not there to write his own story of the chase. So it's always the hunt.
I completely agree with you. I think the anger stems from culture. That's why I believe that we need to demystify these cultural norms in order to sort of start shaping the narrative that is reflective of us as a people. Because as you rightfully said, feminism didn't start in the West. No. You know, our mothers, grandmothers, their grandmothers all had this in them. They exemplified it. Queen Ida that I spoke about led thousands of men to war. She was the mother of the king in Benin. She led thousands of men to war. So women have always been at the forefront of these fights. Women have always done exceptional things. But again, the story hasn't just been amplified in the way that people can truly understand and digest. That's why I think a lot of the anger about feminists, oh, you're a branding feminist, or you don't want to be submissive to your husband, oh, you are a stubborn woman. All these things, I think it also comes from our lack of telling stories, our lack of amplifying what has been done, and, you know, the sheer strength and, as you said, tenacity and audacity of women as a people. And also this agenda to sort of look at women as less, you know. And even in the Bible, for us Christians, you know, the Bible doesn't say women are less than men, you know. So when people also try to use religion, you know, or even the Quran or whatever, to try to sort of suppress women, you're like, you don't really understand what it is that you're reading. So the anger with feminism, especially in Africa, and I bring religion and culture to it because that's really what shapes us as a people in Africa. Religion and culture. It starts and ends there. You know, it starts and ends there. Everything, oh, what does the Bible say? What does the Quran say? Or what does culture say? So, you know, I think when the anger of calling yourself a feminist in Africa also comes from this lack of understanding of who we were from time immemorial, you know. So we're unable to sort of see ourselves in this light. So for you to say that you're a feminist, I mean, you defined it brilliantly. You know, you have this radical ideology that you are human too, period. And that's what feminism means to you, right? So moving forward, so for the young girls that are watching also and have this sort of frustration with their peers and feel like, okay, I'm striving, I'm working hard for opportunities, I have the capacity, because capacity is also very important. It's not important to just say, okay, I'm another human being, I'm female, yes, but no, you need to be able to build your capacity. So they have the capacity to achieve, they have the capacity to, become all that they're aspiring to become. But yet there are still these stumbling blocks, in place. There are these cultural stereotypes that society is still seeing them as less of. But like there are a lot of passive aggressive cultures where they would skip you for positions of promotions and stuff like that, but they wouldn't actually tell you why. But in Nigeria, they say no, because now woman you be. So
we're driving.
Now woman, so I don't really think that this position is for you. So for the young girls watching that have heard these comments time and time again, now woman you be, so we can't give you this position. Now woman you be, so we can't promote you. Now woman you be, so we don't believe that you should be in politics. Now woman you be, so we don't believe that you should be anywhere outside your house, nurturing, birthing, taking care of children. So what would you say to them? Like, what's that word of advice that you would give them that's worked for you as well, that can keep propelling them to achieve what they believe that
very good question, Osasu. Before I answer that, I wanted to go back to what you talked about, culture and religion. And I think that the major problem for me that I see, it's interpretation. And I actually think the West, brought us back decades, after doing is it civilization or what's it called? Colonization. Because we were really making progress on our own. We would have found our own way to get to democracy or to get to wherever we wanted to get to. And women there were structures that were set up. Of course, there were traditions and cultures that were very retrogressive and really horrible towards women. But for the majority, there were strong places where women played stronger roles. And then the interpretation of Christianity that we got, colonialism, then started from the religions that we have. I'm a Christian. I'm thankful to God for that. But some of those early interpretations really then put the women back. And I think when the colonial masters came, they found out that the women were very strong. They needed to push one gender over and above the other to maintain that balance so that they will be in control. And that's what got us where we are. Because since then, how many men... how many women have you found like an Amina? Of course, we're not fighting wars and killing bulls and everything in the forest anymore. But still, we need to begin to bring back those days of glory where we have women who could fight, who could... the independence we have today, everybody talks about Nnamdi Azikiwe and the rest of them, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. But when you go into the archives, you see Fumilayo Ransom Kuti going over to Britain to negotiate for, our independence. Those stories need to be told. And then back to your question about our young women and what to do. I think the first battle we need to conquer is within ourselves. Once you can conquer and defeat the restrictions and the limitations that your mind, sets for you, the rest is easy. I know it sounds cliche, but the truth is that the first limitation is in your mind.
Yes.
Whatever people say about you, and that's why I'm free to talk about what I believe and the ideology that I follow as a woman, without being scared of what people would say about feminism or whatever. So you have to first deal with that. If you're not comfortable yet, then you're not there yet. And the truth is, whenever you wake up is your dawn. So it doesn't matter when you realize that. As long as we have life and breath, we can do anything. So it's not to force yourself to get to that space in your mind where you're not ready to confront the things that you need to do. Because if you're not ready in your mind, a little push here and there, or people saying, no, you shouldn't be doing this as a woman, you just crumble.
You start to second guess yourself.
You just second guess yourself and crumble. So you need to overcome that barrier internally first and defeat that no can-do spirit inside you and bring it to a can-do spirit level. Of course, realizing that there will be days, like I said, there are good days and bad days, and recognizing that you would fail sometimes, you would win sometimes, but as you go at it, and then you need to find your center. What's that thing that really moves you? What's that thing that you're really interested in? It doesn't have to be an Osasu or a Funke or a Chimamanda Adichie. There is that one space for you, that thing you really do well. And you're not going to find it in one day. I'm still finding mine. So please don't think everybody has. I'm sure if you ask a Chimamanda Adichie and Osasu, what's your next frontier? There are places you still want to get to that you're still trying to get there. So it's not a sprint. It's not a marathon. It's a lifelong ambition of finding yourself and finding your purpose. And every day inches you closer to it. So if it's fashion design that you want to do, how do you become a fashion designer that is not just clothing women, but maybe doing something more, giving women the confidence to be comfortable in what they wear, in how they look, and to appear and show up in meetings, feeling okay with themselves. Do you want to add that extra touch to how you make your customers or your clients? Is it food you want to be? And I know everyone is a chef right now. I've been dreaming of becoming my own chef also. But is it in the corporate ladder? Is it in social activism where many young people now find their voice? Because we are living in very perilous times. The economy, COVID did a number on us, and then you have insecurity and the rest of that. So there's so much interest in social justice issues. What particular area of social justice really makes you boil or makes you happy? So rather than agonize over those things that make you unhappy, that you're not happy with, you find a way to organize around it, to change it, So for me, those 3 steps are key. Find your, defeat that no can do spirit first, so you don't second guess yourself. Find something that really, center yourself and find something that really makes you happy, that you do well. Identify an issue that you think you have the solution to, not the problem first. I always try to say the solution to a problem rather than identifying a problem and finding a solution. I believe that you should find a solution to a problem and anticipate something, because there are already existing problems. Why don't you anticipate something and say, in a few years or yesterday or today or tomorrow, I think this is going to be something that I can solve, and this is my solution for this. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful. I tell people all the time that there are a lot of young people still that message me and say, okay, this is what I believe as a feminist. I believe that I shouldn't be washing plates in the kitchen if my younger brother is sitting down there playing Xbox. I feel like he should join me to do that. I believe that I should be able to thrive, to become president of Nigeria one day. But people are telling me that it's impossible. We live in a man's world. This is a male-dominated country. It can never work out for you. Personally, in your life, you're a mother of 2 beautiful girls. You've been married for 20 plus years now, and you've been able to sort of balance your career, your life as a feminist, and also have a successful marriage and, raise beautiful kids who are, level-headed. So how have you been able to achieve this, in your personal life, despite wearing this tag of being a feminist?
I think it's understanding that everybody comes to the table with different skills, different voices, and different specialties. And I always tell people, anything around home chore or house care or whatever, it's a skill everyone needs. The narrative changes when you're in Europe or America, where African men say they can't wash dishes and they can't do this and they can't do that. Okay, go try it in the US, where you have to pay $50 an hour to get someone to do that for you. So it's because of cheap labor. And you talked about the difference, of our $42 billion. Dollars in terms of the
economy.
The economy. Yeah. And so that unpaid care is just what pulls a lot of women down. That's why I say there's systemic and structural issues that women have to grapple with, that you don't have to grapple with. I've made soup and stew while on a Zoom call. Many men probably won't have to do that, but I had to juggle that. So I think in my life, it is realizing that I'm taking note of the stage I'm in when my kids were younger, when my marriage was younger, and I was trying to understand each other. Of course, I had to put my feet down at some point. He had to say, no, this is what I want. And we had to come to a compromise. Compromise is the key. It's not been a bed of roses all the time, but it's having to make those concessions and understanding that you're in a relationship with somebody who is completely different from you. You didn't marry your brother or your sister. Even when you did, you do, when they used to do in the royal families back in those days, you were still different identities. You know, even as a human being, you still struggle with your own personal demons. So it's also understanding that there are at different stages in your life, there are different things you can or cannot do. There's so many things that limit women's potential. Violence is one of them. And my current role is looking at how to prevent gender-based violence from happening in the first place. You know, even though a lot of efforts across, the country looks at response, criminalization, and support, we are more or less focused on prevention as a response to gender-based violence, And many women, are afraid to do certain jobs. They're afraid to go out at certain times of the day because of violence. Even in the offices, you have sexual harassment and all forms of gender-based violence affecting women and girls, and the lives of women are cut short, in the most dire circumstances where they even die, whether it's spousal battery, whether it's rape, or female genital mutilation, whether it's widowhood practices or negative and cultural practices, that undermine the power, voice, and agency of women. So that's where my work is looking at shifting those norms, those social norms and cultural narratives that encourage those things to happen in the first place. Because to prevent it, would need to itemize all those negative social and cultural practices that say, oh, women must shave your hair, you must do this, you must do that, it's our culture, it's this. And those are the things that perpetuate violence. And we're working with faith and culture leaders, for instance. It's a faith leader that would say, no, stay and pray, go to the war room while a woman is being beaten at home, rather than that faith leader saying, you need to protect yourself first. Get out of that abusive relationship. Or this is a safe space. Or call out the man or stop him from taking communion. We need those drastic actions to be taken to support women and not questions like, what were you wearing? What did you say to him? Did you burn his food? Did you respect him? So changing the narrative about how we respond to gender-based violence and telling perpetrators that it's not business as usual. There's no safe space for you. We're moving the safe space to the survivor or to the women and girls most at risk of gender-based violence, and we're calling, and, for people like you in the media, it's changing how we report on some of these things, rather than saying, young girl working at night was raped. Come on.
Young girl walking at night wearing short skirts
was raped. So already
sometimes I see these headlines and
judgment
cringe. Oh my
on the
God.
girl. When the case of this young girl, it really broke my heart, who was raped and killed in a BRT bus. I said that should be the safest place. And this was 8 p.m. She was coming back from a hard day's job. She was in a government bus. She did not take a lift. It was not one chance. So those kind of conversations need to be had.
All right. This has been a beautiful conversation. I have a question from social media who says, I'm a feminist and my biggest fear is that I wouldn't get married because I am a feminist and African. What advice do you have for me?
Oh dear. Whoever loves you for you would find you. And don't try too hard to fit into a narrative just because you want to get married. Because you would have that struggle with yourself. It's like trying to pretend that I'm a doctor so that I can get a job in a hospital. I'm probably going to kill a lot of people. I will definitely kill it if that happens. That's the only narrative I can find, the only example I can find right now. So if this is who you are, and this is what you believe, and you believe that women and girls and men and women should have equal access, equal opportunities, and should not be limited by societal constructs. And then you should find people in those circles who share the same ideology with you. Otherwise, if you suppress that ideology that you believe in just to find a mate to settle with, who is a traditional African man, you're going to have that struggle. You will come out. You bury it for a while, but it will come out and you'll be unhappy. But believing that justice and equity is for all, you don't even need to bear that name. So you don't have to say it everywhere. Everybody you meet, I'm a feminist. It's the same way you don't say I'm a lawyer just before you enter a taxi or before you go into a church or before you enter into a meeting. That personality that believes in certain justices or certain rights of every human being would show forth. And there is a man or a woman out there, if you're a male feminist, because there are, who would love the fact that you believe in social justice. And I would want to be with this person who strongly advocates for justice and equity.
I think that's such a brilliant answer. I don't even think there's anything for me to add to that, because you really hit the nail on the head that if feminism doesn't make you attractive to a setting, caliber of men, then number one, maybe that caliber of men, isn't for you. Then number two, you question the sort of feminism you practice, right? As you said, you don't go around announcing, I'm a feminist, No, you don't need to. Men don't need to go around announcing I'm a feminist. Feminism, I believe we all know, is anybody who believes in the rights of the social, political, economic rights of women, right? So a man can be a feminist, a woman can be a feminist, but it's not something that needs to be this negative, connotation that I feel like he has gotten in a while. Very argumentative, very belittling, group of people who just, see everything a man does as bad and everything a woman does, whether good or bad, as good, So I think it's about interrogating and investigating, first of all, what your beliefs are. And for me personally, I feel like coupling feminism with your religion also, and your religion interpreted the right way, also helps you become more attractive. Because if you understand what the Bible has said, the power of what God has called you to do and become as a woman, to go out and, impact the lives that you're meant to, then couple that with your belief that, a woman can achieve and a woman can, attain whatever level of impact and success that she sets her mind to. That should make any right thinking man attracted to you, So doing it the right way and coupling it with the spirit of discernment, which is given to you by God, given to you by the Holy Spirit, I believe that, you would find that special person for you. So thank you so much for watching this episode. Thank you again, Funke, for being here.
Pleasure.
Follow us on social media at Womanity Africa, and watch out for all our episodes on the first of every month. And you'll be seeing me again, and you'll be hearing from me again. For those listening on radio or Spotify or Apple Podcast, you'll be hearing more of me. And for those watching, you'll be seeing me every first of the month. Take very good care of yourself, and God bless you. And before I forget, there's a tradition I learned from one of my very favorite podcasts, Diary of a CEO. All of you should check that out. They leave a question for the next guest that's coming, but I'm going to remix this. You're going to leave a little note of motivation to the next woman that's going to be sitting, where you're sitting today. So just a short note, just to motivate her and, to keep that pep in her step. So you shall be doing that as we're signing out. Peace.